Oh, yes. Yep. Definitely gonna go viral with these. 1000%. Oh, hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Guns and Cameras podcast. You know, not everything we do as creatives happens out under natural light or or on the range. You know, a big part of what I do and what others do is right here in a studio setting just like this one. Under the lights, it's a little bit hot in here, a little bit too cozy if you ask me. But anyway, our next guest, I think you're really gonna like him. He's a master at capturing these dark, moody, low lit, black images that I almost guarantee you've seen his work. So I can't wait to share our next guest with you. So let's get into this week's episode, shall we? Shooters, are you ready? Stand by. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Guns and Cameras podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Best, and today we have probably one of the experts at working with black, shadows, and dark tones, Mr. Doug Naes, aka Hollow Pointed on Instagram. Doug, thanks for being on the show with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
How's it going, man? Thank you for having me as well. I appreciate being on here. A little bit about me. My name's Doug. I'm from Colorado. I'm born and raised here, so it's been a great place to grow up. I just love taking pictures, man. I don't know if there's a whole lot interesting about me other than just that, yeah, I like taking pictures of guns. It's a pretty good time.
Sweet. So how did that get started? Which came first, the cameras or the guns?
Cameras, for sure. So let's see. Started taking pictures, well, I guess going way back. Cameras have been in my family for a long time. But Grandpa had one, took pictures of my mom and her sisters, and my mom took pictures of me and my siblings growing up. And so, like, I just have always been around cameras and around scrapbooks in particular. So, like, just being able to, like, look back on all sorts of history in my family has just been something I've been super used to. And so when I was kind of, like, floundering in college and couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with my life, my mom had bought a new camera and she was like, you know, taking pictures, and I was like, hey, what are you doing with that old one? Like, can I like see that? Like, maybe borrow that for a little bit, and mess around. And she gave me very clear instructions to take care of it and not break it, to which I ended up breaking it. But that was my introduction, I guess, to taking pictures. And once I started, I just kind of never stopped. So.
Sweet. So what were you studying in college before you kind of made that decision?
So I wanted to be a marine biologist growing up. And so, I mean, Colorado's obviously not the best place, being a landlocked state for that. So I was just doing regular biology as like a precursor. But man, I was just like, I was paying for it myself and wasn't showing up to class, and got to a point I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just like dumping this money down the toilet. Like, do I really want to be here? So ended up saying, I don't know if I want to do that. And if I do, I'll go back, but put the pause on that and start taking pictures.
Cool. So once you started taking those pictures, at what point in your career, like where did you finally kind of get, what was your first big shot, right?
Man, I don't know if I've had a big shot yet, right? Like, they all feel, you know, the ones that feel big in the moment kind of get overshadowed as you keep going. And so I started off taking landscape photos. I was kind of, landscapes and portraits was like the first thing that I really got into, and I still love doing that. But it eventually got to a point where I was like, man, I don't know if I can make this work. Like, nobody wants to shill out money that is life sustaining to do that. And so kind of got to a point where I was like, I don't know if I really want to pursue this as a career anymore. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I like guns and I like taking pictures of stuff and wanted to enjoy taking photos again. So I started taking pictures of just my EDC stuff. It was in the times of a couple years ago when that was really big. People would do pocket dumps and stuff all the time. So I was like, oh, I can do that. That looks really cool. And so that's kind of what started the gun thing, at least, was just failure in other aspects of photography.
So no formal training in photography, studio lighting, self-taught. What was your resources for learning how to run your cameras and lights?
YouTube University, man. Um, just Googling stuff all the time. My mom was a big resource too, uh, but yeah, I'd say 90% of it was just like in the days like watching Peter McKinnon and dudes like that, right? And just figuring it out as we go. Just show up, shoot something, come back, edit it, and usually a little disappointed and go back and do it again the next day. So
So what was your? Do you remember what your first camera was? Do you still have it?
I do still have it. It is a Canon T2i.
Cool.
So yeah, oh yeah.
What do you think the shutter count is on that thing?
So because my mom used it first, and then I used it after probably 400, 500,000.
Wow,
So
crazy.
got to the point where it just didn't turn on anymore. So when I broke it, it was because it was at the like end of its life. New batteries, nothing. Just decided to stop turning on, and I think I cried actually when that happened because I didn't know what I was going to do. Right, I'm like, this is my camera. Like it's been so reliable, and like I would still use a T2i today. Like I think they still take pretty great pictures, and I remember turning it on and it wouldn't go on, and I was like, what am I going to do? Like I can't afford a new camera right now, you know. So but yeah,
Cool.
still have it.
Do you remember what your first paid camera gig was?
Yeah, I do actually. First, like, kind of officially paid, right? Not like a friend or
Hmm.
a family situation. I'm blanking on the name of the brand, but it was a skincare brand that I think found me on Facebook. Actually, if I remember correctly, it was my wife's mom who saw like a Facebook ad or something in a group that was like, I need pictures, and then she was like, hey, my son-in-law can do it, and then reached out to her via that way, and it was like some like lotions and stuff like that. But first paid gig,
Sweet.
yeah,
Dude, that's awesome.
yeah. Funny thing, like feels like yesterday, you know.
So I mean, so what are you up to right now? I mean, um, I'm trying to understand. So kind of help us understand from when you got started to where you are right now, about how much time, and are you currently working full time as a photographer? Like, is this your mainstream thing now, or can you walk us through that process real quick?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I'll start, I guess, at the inception of Hollow Pointed.
Hmm.
So so yes, I'm blessed to be able to say, I get to work full time as a photographer, content creator. And so let's see. So started doing Hollow Pointed as just a way to just an outlet, right? As a way to just take pictures of stuff that I enjoyed. Um, just the mesh of two things, guns and taking pictures. And for a long time, it was just a hobby, and I would still consider it like just to be a fun creative outlet for me. And so through the internet, I got to meet a few people that, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to meet.
Hmm.
And so the company I work for full time is Swamp Fox Optics. And they, in 2022, were hosting an event called Rocky Mountain Range Day. And I had seen their marketing for it, and I'm like, wait, like that's like right down the street from me. Like I live in Colorado, that is in Colorado. So I reached out and I was like, hey, can I come? Like I was a nobody, and I still am a nobody, but like, I said, can I come? This would be really fun, and it's right down the road from me. And they're like, yeah, of course, we'd love to have you out. And that was my like very first industry event. That was my first time like physically being present in the industry outside of just taking pictures for Instagram. And so I got to go meet a bunch of people. I met Mitch for the first time in person at that event, that 2022 Rocky Mountain Range Day, and met a handful of other people, including some of the team from Swamp Fox. And so it was a really fun day. Got to go out, shoot, and take pictures, and that was kind of the inception of my relationship with the company. And then January 2023 rolled around a couple months later, and I had done a few, like I want to say photo shoots, but it was more like, hey, here's an optic, take some pictures, have a good time. And so 2023 rolled around, and they reached out and they're like, hey, like, what are you doing January 24th through 28th or whatever the SHOT Show days were in 2023? And I was like, man, like, I don't know. Talked to my wife, and I was like, I think that's SHOT Show. Like, I've heard of this thing, never been. And I was like, hey, like, I can be free. Like, I can get off work. I was working in a coffee shop at the time. And
Hmm.
they're like, hey, like, we would love to bring you out to SHOT Show with us. you got to pay your way, you got to get flights and hotel, whatever, but we'll get you in and you come hang out with us. And I was like, what the heck? Like, what a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so I begged my wife to make it work and figure it out. I literally flew out on Tuesday morning before the show and flew out Friday night as soon as the show was over. And but I got to go, and so I got to hang out with Swamp Fox quite a bit. It was a cool time. I got to meet a bunch of the companies that like I had worked with just over the internet up until then, and so it was cool just to put faces to names. And and so we were sitting at a dinner, I think on Thursday night, and the team was like, "Oh, come out, have sushi with us." And so I'm sitting at the company dinner. I knew a couple of guys, not everybody, and the owner of the company was there, and we're just having a good time. And the owner of the company goes like, "Okay, so who is this guy? Like, why is he sitting at our table for dinner, right?" And I, butthole puckered up a little bit. I'm like, "Oh, like this is gonna go not great for me." And my buddies were like, "No, no, you don't understand, dude. Like this guy's like he's a photographer. Like he's hung out with us, and they spoke very highly of me, whether that was warranted or not. We'll see. But and so the owner kind of was like, okay, well, like let me see his stuff, and pulled up Instagram or whatever, and he was like, well, why doesn't he work for us then, right? If he is all these things that you guys say, like why isn't he working for us? And so I'm like, I can be bought. Like that's on the table for me. And so we had a good dinner, a good rest of the show, and we all went back. And a couple weeks later, they reached out and brought me in. We're like, hey, like we want to see what this looks like ultimately. And so, kind of the rest is history. But been with them ever since, and still there. So it's a good time, man. Just get to take pictures every day.
Dude.
Can't complain.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. So what was it? I remember because my first SHOT Show was 2023.
Okay, cool.
And I remember I went down there, man. I had like all these, I had big goals, and I went down prepared. I had like made a one sheet, and I was ready to sell myself to all these brands. I walked in the first day, walked through the front doors, and all those plans just came apart.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had to take the entire first day just absorbing the size and scope and scale of this show.
Yeah, dude.
Because for those of you, if you're listening or watching and you haven't gone to SHOT Show, it's kind of hard to explain. I mean, it is the world's largest gun show, thousands of vendors, rows and rows and rows of booths. It is insanely overwhelming. So what was that experience like for you walking into that show?
The same thing. Like, I'm like, holy crap. Like, one, like, I can't believe I'm here, right? Like, how cool is this? That, like, this is a place I'd never thought I'd be for any reason, in any capacity. So that alone was, like, an overwhelming feeling of, like, what am I doing here? Like, a little bit of, like, I don't belong here. And then a lot of, like, this is just crazy, To this day, I don't think I've still seen all of SHOT Show, like, walked everywhere. So it's an animal. It's hard to explain for sure. And if you are listening, you ever get the chance to go, it's a really, really cool opportunity. I would highly encourage you to take someone up if they offer to bring you out, because it's incredible for whatever happens, for whatever it's worth. Like just being there is cool. So
yeah, it's one of the most incredible things I think you could ever experience, especially if you're into the world of guns and cameras in particular.
Yeah. Yep. No shortage of guns there for sure. Cool guns.
Yeah, everywhere you look, you're either seeing an influencer you recognize, a gun brand you recognize, or there's some camera guy carrying every piece of gear you could ever want.
Yeah, for real.
It's as much a camera show as a gun show, is what I've been telling people. Cool. So we got kind of the origin of cameras. Let's talk a little bit about your story with guns. When did that start?
So, I mean, ever since I can remember, grew up hunting here in Colorado with my dad, and I knew two things growing up, in high school, kind of coming into adulthood, right? It was one, as soon as I can, I'm going to get tattoos, and two, I'm going to carry a gun as soon as I can. And couldn't tell you exactly where that came from, but I promised everybody I knew, I was like, as soon as I'm 18 and 21, those two things will be happening, and they did. So, got to grow up around guns. Thankful for our family that, encouraged me, taught me the right things, how to be safe, and all that jazz. And
Cool.
Yeah, just knew that was something I was like, I'm going to have those when I can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay, that leads to two obvious questions. One, what was the first tattoo at 18? And then what was the first gun?
Okay, yeah. First tattoo is this one, this cross on my wrist here.
Cool.
It's not toast with, it just skin moves. First gun I ever purchased was a Glock 45, and I paid an outrageous amount of money for it in COVID. So bought it off a gun broker. I think I spent like $900 on a Glock 45. Yeah, didn't have any other options. There weren't guns anywhere, and that was the one thing I could find, and still have it. So
Sweet.
yeah.
Do you like shooting it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Slick.
Glocks were the first. Like when I got into shooting, I was watching. You ever heard of Mil-Spec Mojo?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I influence shooting wise, like watching him shoot a Glock 17 the way he can, was like, man, there's all these guys with these like really fancy guns, and then there's this dude who like shoots a Glock 17 and makes it look like all these other dudes. And so I kind of was like, well, like it might not be flashy, but I'll consider myself a good shooter when I can shoot a Glock 17 like he can. So I just shot Glocks.
Yeah, man, there's nothing wrong with that. I shot Glocks, still shoot Glocks.
Same.
I carry a Glock.
Yep.
I'm always tickled when I ever get the chance to get behind something like a Staccato, because they're like, again, if you get behind a well-made 1911 platform, they are fantastic running weapons. However, same. I'm like, if I can run a Glock and run a Glock well, right, then everything else kind of just falls underneath that banner, right?
Yeah, 100%. I got a Staccato P a while back, and I had been led to believe that 2011s were just going to be this magical shooting experience, and you're just going to it's going to shoot so flat and feel so good. And I remember being excited, and I do like my Staccato, don't get me wrong, but I shot it for the first time, and I was like, it feels like a gun. Like it feels like a pistol shooting 9mm. Like it wasn't this magical shooting experience I thought I was going to have, and I'm like, oh shoot! So I still have to learn how to shoot and be proficient with this. So
yeah, I relate to that, because I have my range gun right now. I have a fairly well modded Glock 17. That thing runs great.
Yep.
Sweet. So got into guns early. First gun, Glock 45. What was the second one after that? So how did your gun collection start to evolve after that first purchase?
Man, it's hard to remember actually. Glock 45. I think the second one, maybe not so hard to remember. I think the second was a Glock 19. I remember, right as COVID kicked up, buying my first gun, and I was like, I need something that like do all of sorts. So I was like, the Glock 45 would be good. I can carry it. I can do some other stuff with it. Realized pretty quick that like the length of the 17 at the time for me, I didn't have the right setup to make it comfortable, and kind of immediately was like, okay, I think I need something a little bit smaller. So went to Glock 19, picked up a few ARs next, I want to say. I don't know, they just kind of trickle in, I guess, after a certain point. They just start showing up, and my wife wonders where they all come from, but they're there, so.
Do you remember that meme that was going around for a long time where it was that guy that was like, they gave it to me?
Yes. Exactly, dude.
You get to that point where you're like, no, really, seriously, they did. They did give it to me. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's look at some of your stuff. So I have your Instagram here. While I'm pulling this up, if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling us why, how did you come up with the name or the moniker of Hollow Pointed?
Yeah, so it was available, ultimately. I was trying to pick a name that like I thought would be close to guns, right? Something rememberable, right? Because I made this page kind of specifically for just this gun and photo content, and just remember screwing around with a couple things, trying to find a term that I knew would be like recognizable of sorts, and when I typed in hollow pointed, it was available, and I was like, there's no way that would be available. And so when I saw that it was, I was like, well, I guess it has to be that. So
sweet.
Yeah,
I love that. So here we have, this is the top of your page. So we got hollow pointed. I'm gonna drag this all the way down to the very beginning.
Sweet. I don't know if I want to see that, but
no, this is important. This is meant to make you feel good, I promise.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. I'm assuming, is this the Glock 45 right here?
I think that first one might be the 19,
Is this the
actually.
19? I didn't look
Yeah,
close. It is the
definitely the
19.
19.
Sweet. So, kind of talk us through these first few images.
Man, I love that knife. I still have that knife. That's a
This one?
Spyderco. No,
Or
the
no, that's the
walnut from the
HK.
first photo.
This one right here.
Yeah, so that's a paramilitary 2 Tanto that I got. It was like one of the only things I've ever like waited on a website to like pre-order or click when it dropped. Blade HQ did a limited run of those, and I remember spending $200 that I did not have at the time to get that, and I still have that knife. So it's cool seeing it again.
That's awesome.
Sorry, what was your question?
Just kind of like, so one of the things, I mean, since I've been following you, I've always noticed is you, again, leading back to your intro, is you really like heavy blacks
Yeah.
and dark tones. So where did that kind of originate from?
Oh man, I don't know if I could. Well, it wasn't necessarily a desire for me to have that heavy dark style, but I think it was because of my lack of ability to do anything else. Like I don't think I could figure out the lighter stuff the way I wanted to, and so I was like, well, I'll just stick with this. I think, yeah. Man, what a throwback! All that was done with natural light too.
Cool. Did you use this was what camera were you using for these?
I want to say, I think this was so. Okay, so Camera Journey had the T2i. That one dumped on me, and then I wanted to go to full frame and try and go mirrorless. So I went to the RP, the Canon RP. They had just launched the EOS R and the RP, and so I went to RP, and I think some of this stuff might have been on that, and then if it wasn't on that, it was on an R6 because I went from the RP to the R6 to the R5. So probably all R6, R5 days here.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see, like, we go from, we're all Glock. At what point is this all still your own like, as you're collecting stuff? You're kind of building out these photos, and then, because all of a sudden we go from mostly Glock, Spyderco, right, to all of a sudden we got this guy.
The 80s, yeah.
Yep. Looks like, what is that, a SIG?
Yep, 365.
Yep.
Yeah, there's only, I think there's probably only 10 or 15 photos on my account of guns that aren't mine.
Cool.
And so
this is all just work that you're doing. None of this is paid work at this point. This is all just hobby.
Yep.
Awesome.
All just hobby. Just wanting to carry more stuff. And so we're looking at some of that 365 stuff. Okay, so where your cursor is right now, yeah, that image. So that holster I actually bought before I owned a gun. So
Is this an early TXC?
Yeah.
Nice.
So
They don't even have that. They don't use that logo anymore.
Nope.
You got to hold on to that one.
Yeah. So before I turned 21, I was like looking at guns to carry, and the 365 had just come out, right? And I was like reading about it, and I was like, that'd be the perfect carry gun. And so I was talking about it a bunch, and my wife and girlfriend at the time bought me a BB gun version of the 365. SIG made these BB gun versions, like CO2 guns, that were the exact same size, platform, whatever, as the real thing. And so she bought me one of those, and I bought the TXC holster so that I could, like, quote unquote carry, or get used to carrying before I was able to carry myself. And so I actually bought that holster before I owned the 365, and I think that's what, after I got the 45 and the 19, was like, well, I have this holster, so now I should actually pick up this gun, the real thing, and carry it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I told the TXC guys, who are now people I'm blessed to call friends, I told them that story. I was like, I had your holster before I had any actual gun of my own to use.
Dude, right on. I love the TXC holsters. That's all I use
They're solid.
At this point.
And great dudes, so you can blame them all.
Can't blame them. And I love this, right? Because this is, I don't know, there are a few things that go together as easily as guns and cameras, in my
Dude,
opinion.
100%.
And this is just kind of proof of it.
Yeah. Oh,
I can,
doesn't even have a gun in there. That's funny.
right? I can see a lot of the, again, going back, looking over your stuff, because I'm an early Peter McKinnon guy.
Yeah.
Like I started watching a lot of his stuff back when he was still doing magic and card tricks in
Yeah, dude.
his content.
Yep.
And I can see a lot of the influences, right? Because I pull a lot of that too in a lot of the work I do.
100%.
Because I mean, all of these, dude, are just spot on shots, right? And I like that, again, you stay consistent with your look and your style, right? Like, which is not, I mean, I will say, a lot of the people I've talked to, at least on their Instagram feeds to date, don't have this level of consistency in their work right out the gate. At least, I mean, I'm sure that you have some of the landscape stuff that you probably haven't added to this page.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, this is guns only.
I mean, when it comes to guns, it's just like, this is all excellent. There's not a bad picture up here.
That's because they're all still on my hard drive.
Right.
I appreciate that. I just set the lights up the same time, the same way every time, I guess I should say.
Yeah, no, but there's a lot to be said about that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that people tend to follow trends a lot, and I think what's cool is just seeing, like, you know what you like and you make what you like, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well,
Right.
I appreciate that, right? Because like one of the things that I get sucked into all the time is feeling like I'm digging myself a hole that I can't get out of, right? Like I want things to look cohesive when you're looking at a feed, right? So I like my coworkers at Swan Fox give me a hard time because I want that feed to look a certain way, and I want my feed to look a certain way, but then I do it too much, and then I'm like, well, now I feel like I can't do anything else, right? Like, you know, I want to change my style or whatever that look is, and I feel like I can't because I am so ingrained in this way. So I appreciate that other perspective, right?
No, man, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, the more I develop and the more I work, the more I like to niche into. I just want to make what I want to make.
Yeah.
I have my look, and that's what I want to shoot, and I just want to do that.
Yep.
But I want to ask you this question. So we're scrolling through this feed. A lot of this is very, we got a lot of the same angle, like top down, right? Kind of one dimensional. And then all of a sudden we pop right up to this point. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're not one dimensional anymore. So at this point in your work, what changed to make you want to start kind of having this big of a change, like a switch in how you're staging your shots?
Mitch happened.
No kidding.
Yeah, dude. So it was about that time, right, where the feed kind of noticeably changes, that I'd got connected to Mitch, and I was looking at his work around the same time, and I was like, dude, what the heck am I doing? Like, I suck, and so a lot of that was like, it's like that first Daniel shot with that square around it. Yeah, that one. Like that was basically like, okay, I'm seeing dudes do this, right? So Mitch was doing it at the time, a few other guys were doing it at the time, and I'm like, I don't know how they're doing it, but I'm not going to stop until I figure it out, right? And so I learned far later that they had a much easier way of doing this that I didn't know at the time. But when I was trying my hand at it in this shot, I would hang up the gun with fishing line, right? I took 2 C stands and did like a paper roll, but then I hung the gun with fishing line from that, and then I used a constant light and I focus stacked all of these shots because I didn't know any other way. And when I told Mitch that at the time, he was like,
bro,
"You're kidding, right? Like you're joking that you're focus stacking with constant lighting." And I was like, "No, dude. Like how do you do it? Like, is this not the way to do it?" And he was like, "No. Like I use flash." And at the time, I was still ignorant, and I would say my journey through photography has been characterized by things that I thought I didn't need to know how to do that I then learned were really important that I needed to know how to do. And flash is one of those things. So I ended up coming around, but at the time I was like, no way, I don't need flash. Like, that's dumb. And there I was wasting hours and hours and hours trying to wait for those things to stop swinging to take pictures.
Yep. Guaranteed. I am taking home the Gundy Award for Photo of the Year with this right here. In fact, I'm so sure of it, I've already got most of my speech written. I'm just kidding, guys. We are halfway through this week's episode of Guns and Cameras, which has been brought to you by 1156 Productions and by Tokens of Valor. Tokens of Valor is my side hustle where I take bullets, casings, fragments, I mix them with sterling silver, and I turn them into one-of-a-kind, hand-forged wearables for both men and women. If you're interested in having one for yourself, find me on Instagram at Tokens of Valor, send me a DM, and we'll get something started for you. I really hope you're enjoying this week's episode featuring Mr. Doug Naes, aka Hollow Pointed on the gram. Doug is crazy talented and he's going big places. So if you don't follow him already, be sure to go check him out. We got a lot more coming in the second half of the episode, so I'm gonna let y'all get to it while I get back to all of this. Enjoy the rest of the episode, guys. So did you focus stacked all of these initial ones, or at what point did you start bringing in
Keep
Flash?
scrolling up.
Let's see if we can find it. Because I actually like... I like this.
Yeah, and I don't think I could do that with Flash now either, which is funny.
Probably not like that, just like this really low highlight, but
Yeah.
still keeping the detail. I don't know that you could really... so a lot of what I do to get this look is I've used strobe on some of the stuff. A lot of what I do is long exposure, and I just paint. I paint in the highlights, and I'll maybe do some composite, right? Like I'll close the lens down all the way at 22. I'll do like a 25 to 30 second long exposure, and I'll come in with diffusion and light, and I'll paint in where I want highlights.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
Which is kind of where I've gotten that happy point where if I'm not running strobes, and I can pick and choose what I want.
Yeah.
And which I that's kind of my method, right? But I can get a close look if I do. So what I do, I'm about to give away a secret, but that's okay.
That's all good, dude.
We're all on the same team here, and nothing's new under the sun. We all do this. So what I do
Amen.
is I'll do a long exposure, and I'll take one of these LED ones. I use like the Godox TL30s, right? And I'll take a big scrim, like one of the 60-inch scrims, and then I'll do my long exposure, and I'll lean that on there, and I'll just paint. I'll just wave it behind the scrim, and I'll move the scrim around the object, and so I get this really nice soft light from every direction in one shutter.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is why, and again, this right here, what you're doing with the focus stacking, I dig that look, and I get close just doing that with that method.
Dude, that's cool too. Hearing that method, I've done similar, but I've never done that level of kind of focused highlights.
Yeah, it's super fun, and I've been doing that a lot lately, and I dig. As far as studio goes, I mean, it's just such a fun method. But
that's cool. Did you see it yet? By the way, the first Flash photo on the page.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Good call. That was the first photo I posted, at least, of using Flash.
Sweet.
Man, look at it. I wish I had that engagement now, dude.
I know. Look at that.
How times have changed, man.
And in not so long a time.
Yeah.
So at this point, so you got Flash here.
Yep.
So you're still, this is still hobby. This is not paid work at this point.
So that image, it was either right before that or right after that time. Within a couple weeks, I started at Swamp Fox actually.
Okay.
So I guess you could consider at that point moving to being paid, but everything on this feed was all for fun.
Right. So is this one of yours?
That is a buddy of mine's. No, that's one of the
I
ones
gotcha.
that is not mine.
Sweet. Oh, and then we got a big change. We got some frames.
Yeah, and then I did that for a while, and I kind of stopped doing it.
Yeah. Slick.
But that's a lot of constants, I think, and natural light.
And then we just go from there. I love this picture.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was another I think you guys talked about it in Mitch's podcast as well, but his drone photo, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love Mitch, and at the time he wasn't working with us. We ended up bringing him on to Swamp Fox as well to be part of the team, which I'm really glad we did. But before then, we all knew each other. We all lived in the same place, and but it was this constant battle of like, oh, he did that. Okay, we gotta figure something out. Like we can't let him have it for too long because we want to try and continuously up the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that this picture was born out of like, dang, Mitch is really good. Like, how can we try
That's
and figure it
awesome.
out?
I see. I love that. I love hearing that about creatives in our industry, right? Where
Mhm.
there's a healthy competition,
Yeah.
right? When you have a community of creatives that want to push each other to excel, right? Where it's like, hey, we're not trying to tear you down or rip you off, but
Yeah.
we're doing this with the intent of friendly competition, of trying to be like, hey, Mitch did this. Let's see if we can one up, and then Mitch is going to try to one up, and then before you know it, both of you guys are at the level that you're at of just absolutely destroying all the competition just with some of these images, which is
It's
cool.
fun. But you're totally right. It's the best having that friendly competition of like everybody wants the best for everybody and
Hmm.
everybody also wants to crush everybody else.
Exactly. And it's not, again, it's not personal. It's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
there is a point of just like, hey, and again, this is what's interesting. And I don't know if, I'm sure other industries are the same way, right? I'm not putting us on a pedestal, but what I am saying that is cool about our industry is the level of talent that we have in such a small pool of creators,
Hmm.
because we have some insane talent when it comes to studio lighting, whether it's on fig or off fig,
Hmm.
for on white, on black, on any kind of background. Like this kind of stuff is, if you want to talk about photography technique, fundamentals, knowing your camera, knowing your tools, in if you were to take this and transfer this into any other industry, you would be, you know, you're right up there with some of the best in the world.
Yeah.
But nobody really gets that,
Yeah,
right?
no. But it's,
Um,
I don't have a ton of experience in other industries, right? But I also don't think I'd want to be anywhere else, you know?
right.
Like I love the people that I've come to meet and now get to call friends in
Hmm.
this industry and man, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Right. So let's wrap up looking at this stuff. So I mean, we could look at your work all day, but we go from a lot of blacks, right?
Yep.
Which again, this is why one of the cool things about Instagram, that I mean, in general, I'm not a huge fan of social media, but what's really cool is the you have basically a timeline portfolio
Yeah.
of how your work has evolved and changed, and it kind of connects to these timelines. So we go from, here's your happy place, you're getting outside of your comfort zone a little bit, you're doing some 3D stuff. All of a sudden, it's like you go full throttle into, wow, we got color. All of a
Hmm.
sudden, there's this bright reds, and we got, and again, like you said, a lot of this I can see working with Mitch and the influences that he's bringing in. But then it just then you just get really, really creative color, angles. You know, it at this point, like, I mean, look at this,
Well, and
right?
that was actually so. I didn't do the graphic on that. That was
Mm,
a friend that put that together, but still really cool. Like his vision on that is not something I would have ever seen, which is really cool.
right. But and then there's still some throwbacks. Like here's a throwback to your origins, right?
Yep. Yep.
And it just goes on and on and on, and we're pretty quickly caught up to, the kind of cool thing I was looking at your feed is that you're kind of settling back into this now all of a sudden. Like, so you went through your crazy transformative phase where you're like, I'm trying all this stuff that I'm
Yep.
really, maybe not interested in, but then you settle back in with this nice happy, like just a really nice combination of everything that you've learned through your journey,
Hmm.
black and whites, a little bit of color, and then we're here too today.
Yep.
And it's dope.
Yeah. It's funny. Like just scrolling back, like watching you scroll back through. Like I'm seeing like years go by of like Court was another guy who's in a lot of the
Hmm.
photos of the guy that when I post pictures of the dudes, like Court was in a bunch of those. Mitch, huge influence. Like having those guys around, man, was like just such a huge time for us to like challenge each other, but also like get to spend time with other creatives and just learn how we work. And so it's just cool going back through. It's like like a memory capsule of the last few years of my life.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah, good work, man. It's awesome.
Well, I appreciate it.
So to date, Doug, what has been kind of the coolest project that you've had the opportunity to work on?
Um, there's a lot of smaller projects that come to mind, for sure. But I'd say I think the coolest thing I've gotten to do so far is working with Swamp Fox and being part of a bigger picture, right? And I don't want to downplay, like, I have had just more opportunities than I could have ever imagined to work with some really incredible people on some really incredible projects, and I don't want to downplay any of those, but being a part of a team, especially when we had the guys around, um, was really cool to be part of something bigger than myself, and it still is to be a part of something bigger than myself, and just watch the needle move in a bigger way, right? It's all these day by day moments and decisions and things that kind of work up to this bigger picture, and so without trying to pick one of the smaller things that I've gotten to be a part of, I think the coolest thing thus far is still just getting to be a part of a bigger vision, a bigger goal, and trying to use what I do to help move that needle.
Sweet. So, changing gears. What is in your camera bag right now?
Nothing, actually. So, such a funny question. So, my wife is a wedding photographer,
Cool.
and so she stole all my stuff.
All right
And
on.
so, for a while, I was shooting on the R5, the R6, um, and so I technically still have those, but I don't. They belong to my wife now, and
Gotcha.
she uses those for her weddings. So, and then the stuff I use for work is all Swamp Fox owned equipment, and that's all Sony stuff. So technically, things that I get to use that I can call my own is a drone. I have a drone,
You have a drone. Sweet.
so that's about it.
So, hey, here's an interesting point to bring up. So you own Canon. You started in Canon. You work on Sony.
Yep.
Do you like them both? Do you have a preference? What are your thoughts on Canon versus Sony?
I think if I could use, I might offend some people here, but if I could use Sony bodies and Canon glass, I think I would. That'd be my pick. But that being
I mean,
said, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say. I mean, I do that.
Yeah.
I've done it. I still do it. I have
Really?
a Nifty
Nice.
50, a Canon Nifty 50, and an
There you go.
adapter. I don't get to use all of the necessarily the autofocus features, but when you're shooting manual, I just like the look out of that lens, man. Sometimes I throw it
I,
on. And,
I would be happy if all I had the rest of my life was a Nifty 50 and then any body to throw on it.
hmm
But uh, but no, like I think one of the things. So when I started working for Swamp Fox, um, my wife she uses all of our gear basically, both bodies, the handful of lenses that we have, and so I knew kind of talking to Swamp Fox is like I'm not going to have any of my own stuff to use because my wife shoots 30 weddings a year basically,
Dang.
and so she's busy and there's not a lot of overlap of when I can use our stuff. And so I remember telling Swamp Fox, I'm like, guys, like I almost turned the job down because I was like, I don't have equipment to use. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, why does that matter? I'm like, because I'm a photographer. Like, I gotta have it. And like, dude, we'll get you stuff. Don't worry about it. So, but the contingency or the that was contingent upon them getting Sony stuff. So that was when I was forced to learn Sony, and I'm glad I did because maybe before then I would have been like a diehard Canon guy, but cameras are just cameras, man. Like it's just gear, and if anything, like it was a good opportunity to learn that could really care less what I'm shooting on, as long as like I'm getting the result that I want, and so I would
Yeah.
take any of it. I'd shoot on Nikon if I had to. Like
Yep.
that's all good. So
Sweet. Content is king. That's the
yeah.
thing to learn, right? Story, narrative, that trumps everything. If it's a good story, a good image, doesn't matter what it's shot on,
Yep.
people still like it.
100%.
Okay, so nothing in the camera bag.
Nope.
What's in your gun bag? What do you got? What do you carry around every day?
This would be a bit of a long conversation. So EDC is a Glock 19 right now. It's been that for as long as I took those pictures at the very beginning. Um, the gun itself has changed a little bit. I picked up an MOS version. I got the Ramjet on there and an RMR. So I've changed a few accessories, but other than that, it's been a Glock 19 for the past couple of years, and I don't really foresee that changing. But yeah, I got a couple guns that I like.
Sweet. How do you like the ramjet system from Radian?
Solid,
Dude.
it's so nice.
Yeah, I got one on mine. I got one on on my 17 and on my 19, and I'm tickled with both of them.
Dude.
So
And if you know me, like I like Radian quite a bit. I love the dudes over there, and I love their products, and so I'm just a shill. Honestly, I don't even get paid. I'm just a shill, and but no, they make some really good stuff, and I've been very happy with it.
sweet. Well, hey, what's something you're looking forward to coming up in your career, right? Because I mean, you're still pretty early. I mean, you've been running cameras for a long time, but I mean, you're still, 2, 3 years into the gun industry. What are you looking forward to in the future?
Man, it's so like it's hard to answer that question because like, not that there aren't things that like I think I'd want to happen, like benchmarks and goals that I'd like to hit, but if you were to ask me to sit me down 3 years ago, right, and tell me all these things that were going to happen, right, that had to be so perfectly, meticulously laid out in the way that they happened in order for it to all work, like I would have called you crazy, like no way any of that would have happened the way you said it was going to, and then I would have the opportunities I have today. And so I think one of the like looking into the future, it's hard to even conceptualize, I think, what really could be out there. And so I'm just kind of taking them day by day. But yeah, man, it's crazy. And I just looking forward to whatever happens. I can't say that there's anything in particular that I'm like, that in particular I'm excited about. But
Sweet. Are you a faith-driven guy?
I am, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I think that God has a big hand in in that, man.
Oh, 100%. I know that's not everybody's thing. And so, but yeah, like it had to work out the way that it did. There's no way looking back that it was an accident that this conversation led to this situation that led to this opportunity that led to this one photo this one person saw that thought was really cool. Like,
Bro,
it all has to happen the way it does. So
you know what's so crazy about that though is that is exactly my story. It's your story too, which is cool, right? Because that is exactly how I've been able to get any kind of success. And I think part of that, 100% credit goes to Holy Spirit, God moving in my life. Mm-hmm. But 2, the second thing is like just being willing to be a yes man or a person that's willing to be uncomfortable, mm-hmm. right? Because firstly, you had to have the opportunity you had to be presented with the opportunity, right? But then you had to be willing to be uncomfortable and say, hey, to get over your perceived lack of ability and say, I am willing to try mm-hmm. and risk failure and humiliation for the sake of, following after this dream. And I think that in our industry in particular, I think in the gun industry, that is something that is appreciated and well received, right? Is that willingness to be like, hey, I don't know, but I'm going to try.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
We had Kirsten Wales was the episode just recently, episode 3, and she blew my mind because she didn't even have a camera. She didn't even know she wanted to be a photographer. She didn't really want to be, but she kind of developed a passion for it and was willing to be uncomfortable and risk failure to make it happen. So, I mean, dude, your work speaks for itself, bro.
I appreciate that.
Crushing it. So,
I mean, I'm glad to be here, man. Like the people you've had on so far are just all these heavy hitters, dude. And it's just like, I know like any photographer, Mitch would say the same thing, right? It's like, we all feel like we're just looking up at everybody else, but man, like it's just a blessing to be a part of such a cool community, right? You talked before
mm-hmm.
about like the weird, strange amount of talent that there is in a very niche area like content creators in the firearms industry specifically. And I'm just happy to be here. Happy to call a bunch of you guys my friends because I don't feel deserving of that at all. So,
dude, it's awesome. Yeah, it's I'm stoked to be able to make connections, right? Because again, we got cool people in this industry. I think that's one of the reasons why it keeps people in it. It's kind of a black hole, is that you realize that the people that are here truly want to be here because they're willing to put up with all the other stuff, all the constant fear mongering of what's happening in the world, and we're willing to tolerate all that just because we love what we do. We love the people we work with and supporting the industries, right?
Absolutely.
and the manufacturers and all that. So out of what we looked at, out of all of your work, first off, first question, do you print your work? Have you made prints?
100%. Not as much as I want to, but like I think the thing I do the most often is like I just make them as gifts, right? When I go on trips with family and stuff, I'll usually make a photo book
Sweet.
for the people that like hosted the trip, and so there are a few people that have pretty sizable collections of my work, and just because they're close people that I've been around my whole life, and so they get the kind of the dibs on the prints. But I mean, I tried to sell them at one point. I think everybody does, like, and I would still like to. I think if someone came along and was like, I'm going to write you a blank check and you can do whatever you want, I'd buy a little shop with an upstairs studio that I can live in, and downstairs I can run a small photo gallery, and just be happy doing that.
That is an excellent idea. I might still. I mean, that's
Please steal it, dude.
almost
Like,
1,000%. I
let's
agree,
do it.
100%. That's but so you do make prints. Out of everything we've looked at right now on your feed, what if you had to pick one as your favorite piece? Which one would it be?
That's a great question. Let me look real quick.
And while you're looking, just a heads up, I want to buy a print. I told Mitch this too. I would love to. I want to be able to, help support people in the industry. And again, I'm a big print guy, right? So there's a guy I follow on social media. Oh my gosh, now I'm going to screw up his name. I always do this. I'm terrible with names on the spot, by the way.
It's all good.
Oh, what is it? Is it the Shutter Ghost?
Okay.
Shutter Ghost. Let me look and see if that is his Shutter Ghost. Yes, it is the.shutter.ghost on Instagram.
Okay.
And this guy, I've chatted with him a little bit. We've had some interaction. I just send him notes every once in a while. I'm like, bro, thanks for the inspiration. But what this guy does is he's a photographer, and he's into cars, and he goes out and he just finds random people's cars.
Oh, yep. I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
So cool.
Finds random people's cars, shoots a bunch of pictures, does some quick retouching, and then has this little portable print set up in the back of his rig with a bunch of little merch, like a keychain with a number on it. Puts this little goodie bag together and then leaves it on their windshield just anonymously, and that's his thing, and I love it.
So epic, dude.
I'm all about that stuff, and so I ripped him off at the last SHOT Show, and I made these goodie bags right with I did artist proof prints off this, bought the exact same printing setup that he had, and I made all these little prints and did this thing, and just with the whole point and purpose of being able to say, hey, I want to give these away. If somebody asks for them, you can have one. If I meet somebody, I'll give them one. And just for the sake of say, hey, you can own a piece of art, right? Maybe it's not a big deal of art, but it's not digital, it's physical, and you can have it. So if I have the opportunity to, if I can buy a print from you, I'd love to buy a print. I would love it to be a print of whatever your favorite piece is while you're looking that up.
I'll level with you, and I will send you one. I won't let you pay for it, but I will happily send one your way, because I think that'd be really cool.
Tight. Well, then that'd be excellent, because I would love to be able to have a piece of work. That's something that's really important to me right now. As I was watching a video on YouTube about an artist that was talking about how awful the art world is because everything is just pixel dust, right? If the internet goes down, all that goes away.
It's all gone. Yeah.
And I was like, I got to start printing more stuff. So I've tried to print as much as I can now.
Dude, for sure. Looking through, right, thinking of my favorite piece, probably the photo that comes to mind is not one that's on my my account. Actually, it's a photo that I took on my honeymoon with my wife, and I'll send you one of those, I think.
Okay. Yes, dude, whatever is your favorite, as long as it's cool with you. Awesome. I will say too, though, I will take your favorite one, and then I'd like to have one of whatever your favorite gun photo is in particular too, because that'd be cool. Don't spend a lot on it. Could be a little teeny weeny print. Just print it, sign it, title it, send it my way.
Heck yeah, dude. That'd be sweet.
Anyway, all right, we're coming up close on our hour. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We are going to kind of close this one out with a question I usually have more in the middle, but this is, for the lack of a better term, this is the oh shit moment question. Okay, so we all have one. Could be good, could be bad. But what is your oh shit moment, Doug?
It could have been like, it was probably 2023 SHOT Show, honestly. Just feeling way out of my depth, right? Like, and I was super thankful for that trip, like I said before, to get to meet people, right? Like, I spent the whole first day just tracking down the handful of companies that I'd worked with up until that point, just like product trades for content and stuff like that. And so the whole first day was spent finding people, and that was, as you know, proven very difficult to do all in one day. But I think probably that moment of like, this is real, right, was walking into SHOT Show that first day, right, of just like, a mixture of like, how cool is this? I don't belong here. Like, what am I doing? And then still have like, I had that moment this year too, like, it still is just like, holy crap, I can't believe that I'm here of all places, right? And I'm not a big fan of Vegas in particular,
No.
but the show itself, right? Like, it's just such a humbling, a humbling experience. One to, to remember that like, there's still a lot of people in this industry that I have yet to meet, and hopefully I'll get to continue meeting more people. But like, just it's so much bigger. It's easy to get kind of lost in the day to day of like, this project and doing this for work and got this side project going on too, and just kind of getting into the weeds of stuff. And then you go to places like SHOT Show and some of the other range events and smaller trade shows, and just getting to remember, that this is still a small piece of a much larger picture that we get to be a part of. So,
Dude, that's awesome. That's my almost my exact same SHOT Show experience. I can't hardly tolerate the strip, right? More than a couple of days. Dude, the first SHOT Show I went, I have family that lives down in Henderson.
Okay, cool.
And so the first time I went, I stayed off the strip, which was honestly the best thing I ever did. And I remember the first show and they were awesome because the family that are down there, it's like my best friend's family, and they are so supportive of a lot of the efforts of trying to, at the time, trying to grow my own business and all that stuff. And I came back from that first day just absolutely defeated, right? That feeling of just like, yeah, I don't belong here. Nobody's going to want to talk to me. I'm the smallest fish in an ocean right now, right? And went back, and they were able to encourage me and be like, hey, just go out there and talk to one person. Find one and just talk to them. Hand out a business card.
Yeah.
And that'll be a victory.
Dude, and that's what it is, right? Because then you realize really quick, like, nobody gives a rip how many followers you have on Instagram. Like, it's about the people you meet and the relationships you build with those people. And yeah, there's a ton of people, and I think one of the things I'm super thankful for, like, is like every time you get to go to those events and you just see all your friends, right? It is just the best friend reunion ever, because it's not about, again, like I said, how many followers you have or how famous you are or whatever. It's just, they're your boys. There's your people,
Yeah, especially right now in our industry, because again, like, follower count is, you're lucky if you get one every couple of months.
Yep.
It seems like these days. So right on. All right, so Doug, if you could give any piece of advice to somebody just starting out in the industry or somebody interested in picking up a camera and shooting a gun, which sounds hilarious, but again, I love the crossover.
Yep. Shooting in some capacity.
Yeah, exactly. What would you say to them? What would you tell them?
Don't be afraid to ask for help, right? I operate off of a like no secrets kind of way of thinking, because we were all there at one point, right? Every single photographer, every single firearms owner, shooter was that, I don't even know where the safety is on this thing, or I don't know where the shutter, like, how do I get the camera to go off, right? Every single one of us was there at one point, and I think all of us can remember somebody that helped pull us out of that spot, right? Or hopefully, and so there are people that want to help and want to see people succeed and show you how to use your gun and show you how to use your camera, and you just got to ask. And not everybody's going to help you, but there will be people that do, and seek those people out and try and be one of those people that wants to help. I always tell people, like, there's nothing that I know about cameras or about shooting that I figured out on my own, right? I didn't discover some secret thing, technique that nobody's ever seen or used before. Like everything that I know how to do is an amalgamation of all the people that have helped me or all the YouTube videos I've watched, and in a way, those people helping me, right? And so, like, ask for help and be somebody that wants to share and help people learn and grow. And we all, rising tide raises all ships. We all have a good time if that's what we do. So,
Dude, Doug, thank you so much for being on the show. So stoked to have you on. Fantastic work. If somebody wants to hire you freelance or work with you directly, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
shoot me a DM on Instagram, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the easiest way.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard Doug. If you want to get a hold of him, go find him on Instagram. His @ is hollow-pointed, spelled exactly like this, and I'll put the graphic on the screen. This has been an hour with Doug. He has some fantastic work. So stoked to see what he has coming next. If you go follow him, you won't be disappointed. Doug, thank you so much. Do you have any last words for our audience?
Just thanks for being here. Thanks for spending an hour out of your time. If you got this far, listening, and yeah, appreciate it.
Right on, guys. Thanks for joining us for this evening's episode of the Guns and Cameras podcast. We appreciate you. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and we'll catch you next time. Have a great day.
Photographer pose number 76. Boom. And that is a wrap on this here photo shoot, and consequently a wrap on this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. I really hope you enjoyed hearing the stories from Mr. Doug Naes, aka Hollow Pointed, on Instagram. If you don't already follow Doug, be sure to go look him up, give him a follow, shoot him a message, tell him how awesome his work is, because I know for a fact that he would appreciate hearing from you guys. And hey, you guys, stay tuned, because we got some great stuff coming up here in the next couple weeks. We got some great guests lined up for Guns and Cameras. I really appreciate you guys supporting us, listening to our podcast, watching the podcast. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram. You know, we really appreciate you and could definitely use your support. In the meantime, I'm going to go work on next week's episode of Guns and Cameras and start processing all of this imagery. You guys have a great day. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay tuned. Guns and Cameras. It's going to be big.